My name is Lynnette Williams. I'm from the city of Grosse Pointe Farms. I'm going to talk to you today about the corruption in the Wayne County Probate Court as well as the Circuit Court of the state of Michigan. And this is a case about fraud, racketeering, embezzlement, corruption, and violations of individual civil and constitutional rights. My case begins with I and my daughter, Myalani Williams, birth trauma. I was injured as well as my daughter. We have injuries that are lifelong, and we won a medical malpractice suit. I can't name the individuals at this time that I sued, but anyway, those individuals, and we were receiving the monies through an annuity. That annuity later was paid through Executive Life, now MetLife. MetLife told Wayne County Probate Court that the monies belonged to myself as well as my daughter for birth trauma and injuries to our back, abdomen, and my daughter has cerebral palsy as well as microcephaly. All of a sudden in 1994, I was contacted by the Wayne County Probate Court, says that I was not supposed to have the money, that I was supposed to file accounts. There were no accounts to be filed because there was no separation of money. I once believed in our Constitution of the United States. It has no safeguards for anyone anymore. The Milton Mack was the judge that first heard my case. He told me that he didn't care that it was my money, as well as my daughter's. He started taking it. He says he wasn't giving me anything. I called him a liar and a thief with a robe on. These individuals have been using our monies from our settlement, which are in the millions, for their own personal use, while me and my daughter starved. For 2.5 years, the annuity company was making payments to the successors, appointed conservators pertaining to our case, and keeping the monies for themselves, where I and my daughter did not even have food. Where every judge from Milton Mack, Freddie Burton, Judge Kirkendall, Judge George from Macomb County that comes to Wayne County now to hear our case, has been stealing the monies. I don't have a car to this day to take myself to the doctor. I don't have medical insurance. They told me to let the Wayne County Probate Court steal our monies and for me to commit perjury and fraud and go to Social Security Administration and get money from them for us to live on while they steal it. This is still going on even today. The thing is, people need to know what's going on, and no one, and I and my daughter should not be living this way, denied food, everything. Like I said, I once believed in the Constitution. I no longer do. I thought you tell the truth, and the truth changed for no one. Mr. Cushenberry was one of the successor trustees. My home has been in foreclosure, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Milton, in 1997, Milton Mack ordered my home sold in Grosse Pointe because I borrowed over $30,000 from my dad to pay the taxes, while Cushenberry and Mack paid taxes on deceased individuals' homes with our money. This is crazy. The citizens of the state shouldn't be going through this. I don't have a car. I can't even go to the doctor. I had to get a ride to the studio today. People need to know what's going on. And it's happening in Oakland County, everywhere. The judges are splitting the monies between themselves, putting attorneys who are their friends in positions of authority, letting them rip the citizens off, while we, the citizens who even won lawsuits, which my court case was settled out of court because the particular hospital knew the damage that they caused me and my daughter. I'm an individual who was 25 credit hours from a master's degree in physics. And I do law now, and I go out of my way to try to help anybody that needs help. I encumbered my deed. I suggest that everyone do so. Don't believe the attorneys that tell you the wills are safe. They are not. If a judge decides not to go along with your will, as they have the Rosa Parks case, they will throw it out, lie, tell the public that this individual did one thing a certain way. Of course, claim every woman is crazy, and I don't know a man alive or dead that hasn't done that, and take what rightfully belongs to you. My daughter is the kindest person. They have sick Grosse Pointe Farms police on us numerous times. I don't have a criminal record. They tried to give me one. They went in my daughter's school, took her clothes off, and took pictures of her naked to frame me for child abuse. Even after that, they rolled up to my house at Jacobson's and told, with three police cars with 6 officers, guns drawn, said that I went to Jacobson's, stole a white lady purse. I hadn't even been out the house. You name it, it's happening. But I will not ever stop telling the truth. They told George Cushenberry George Cushenberry told me from Milton Mac that he'll make a deal with me if I didn't talk to the person. I told him the truth was not for sale, and it's never for sale. And you know, like I know, the truth never changes for anyone.
I would like to find out how you managed to win a case, win a judgment. You had that amounted to millions of dollars.
Yes.
Only to be living on SSI, or Social Security Administration, and not being able to feed your daughter and yourself. Well, they're taking the money or the proceeds and or whatever it is that they're doing to be able to just share it among themselves, but leave you without.
Number one, we didn't get on SSI and ADC. We had too much money. The law says through SSI and ADC that if your annuity is still making payments from your settlement, you're supposed to be getting it. But Milton Mac told MetLife and had ex parte proceedings and told them to send them the money, although I have a letter from MetLife's law department saying that it should be coming to me. And Milton Mac told the MetLife that he didn't want it to come to me, which I even have a document, which I'll have you provide to the viewers, showing that Milton Mac told MetLife, I'll protect you from any litigation. So when I get ready and try to get an attorney, just as Mr. Ingalls, my friend, they threaten any judge or other attorney that you may have representing you, harass anybody, like I say, written down. And my phone to this day is even tapped. I hear them just like me and you talking.
Who are they and them?
Grosse Pointe Farms Police and the probate court. Walter Sikowski is one of the attorneys that's on it at this time. He's corrupt as all get up. He's from Livonia. They're pocketing the money. He even told me I couldn't have a flat screen TV, something so I won't have to need a converter box. I don't have cable. For 2.5 years, I guess in their minds, they thought they were doing a trading places situation. They didn't give me or my handicapped daughter not 1 cent to live on for 2.5 years. They thought I was going to start writing bad checks, committing crimes. If you're not a criminal, you're not going to do those things. God has blessed me, and some people who were going to give us Christmas gifts at Christmas time, I would tell them to do me a favor and pay a bill. And Detroit Edison was very good to me, and helping me meet the criteria so that I could have it taken care of later. But for 2.5 years, they didn't even give me 1 cent to live on while they collected thousands, hundreds of thousands of our monies. And they told me to go get on ADC and SSI, and they said no, that I didn't qualify. They laughed at me, a matter of fact. How dare you live in Grosse Pointe and need our assistance? But they were still in it, and the SSI department lets them take individuals' monies, and I'm talking about all nationalities, and take their monies and try to then make that family qualify for ADC and SSI when we don't. And then even when I went to ADC, they told me to say, oh, Miss Williams, we'll give you something if you say you're a crackhead, so they can later use against you.
And they did use things against you. Could you elaborate more about your daughter, how old she was, the types of criminal charges that they were trying to frame you with?
Right.
And why they would do that? Okay.
Number one, I even have documentation to that. It's an attorney by the name of Mary, what Smith is her very last name. She has a seminar that she teaches attorneys how to steal families' sell annuities monies, have it go to them, and make no disbursements for a living directly to the families. So they can decide what they want you to have. If you say, my daughter eats ice cream, for instance, on Sunday, that's a treat. They can say, I don't want her to have any ice cream, and don't give you the money in your monthly payments to even provide for that.
How is it that they're in charge of the money and they're paying you and deciding that?
Well, in my settlement, I had no accounts to file, as I said. They later claimed, although I have documentation proving otherwise, that I was supposed to file accounts. Someone always supposed to violate something. I didn't get my settlement papers until years later. From Elbert Hatchett was the attorney I had that closed it out. He's corrupt too. He went to jail right after mine. He wouldn't come forth, and Robert Crawford to even straighten out their mess. So it's legal malpractice. But I had Harry Ward before that. He pulled a gun on me because I could make out the legal terminology of the structure of the suit under him, which he would still be getting payments, and I fired him. But these people just feel it's theirs. You know, years ago, the attorneys used to ambulance chase. They don't have to do that now. They have the probate court. They can still take anything. Milton Mack, Freddie Burton has been in a position of Chief Judge Pro Tem and Chief Judge of the Wayne County Probate Court over 18 years. Why? There are individuals that work at the courts who have told me over the years that the attorneys line up around Christmas time coming in getting Milton Mack, supposedly, money under the table every year. So if he wants to go to Paris with his family, he instructs one of his attorneys, I guess, to take monies from families from their settlement. We don't deserve it. We don't know what to do with it. It doesn't matter that I'm not a drug addict. I'm a law-abiding citizen. This is why they went in my daughter's school, took Maya Lonnie's clothes off. She was at Brownell Middle School at the time. They gave her regular teacher paid vacation in the middle of the school year. And they did, and took her clothes off and took pictures of her naked to frame me for child abuse. So that then they could justify taking my daughter, to take the money. If my daughter's not with me, then they could say, I'm keeping the money for the child. But even although I proved, and they broke the law says, under protective services, under the state of Michigan, if you, a doctor, teacher, policeman, suspect abuse, you're supposed to check it. But the thing is, they're supposed to get the parents' permission. They did not do that with me. Plus, we have been in Grosse Pointe Farms for over 10 years. The injury that happened to my daughter was called keloid marks, which were left from an injury in 1984. My daughter, Maya Lonnie, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. My son made a mistake, set Maya Lonnie on the stove, didn't know the electric stove was on. When I learned of it, immediately I paid a neighbor to take me to the hospital. I was investigated then. I was cleared. That was in 84. We moved out in Grosse Pointe Farms in 86. They had my daughter, by her being handicapped, they have to help her dress and undress, use the bathroom each and every day. If they had any legit concerns about the keloid marks on my daughter, if they would have asked him when we first moved there, I would have not hesitated to provide them with that. Her teacher and others knew. But what the probate court did, as well as the school system in Grosse Pointe Farms and the probate court and the Grosse Pointe Farms police, went into school, took her clothes off to frame me, didn't call me, and broke the law. And I went before, I filed it myself at circuit court. Grosse Pointe Farms attorney sent it to federal court before Ann Diggs Taylor, and she, as a person calling herself a civil rights activist, threw my case out and covered up for the Grosse Pointe Farms school system, as well as the police that violated me and my daughter's civil and constitutional rights, because I had got a card from a social worker, was left with my daughter, and my older daughter had moved back home. I thought it was concerning my granddaughter. And I called it. It was a Friday. She wasn't there. I called her, returned the call on that Monday. And I said, this Miss so-and-so, so-and-so. She says, may I speak to Miss Williams? She said, I said, is this concerning my granddaughter? She says, no, we have charges against you, Miss Williams, for abuse of your daughter. And she asked me, the social worker said, Miss Williams, could I have permission to visit your daughter in about 2 weeks? I say, no, you go now. Because I didn't want nobody to say her injury healed or anything else. And the worker was very kind. She was a Caucasian lady, and she said, Miss Williams, what the school system and the probate court had did is gave my daughter's regular teacher, Miss Walney, paid vacation in middle school year. I'm talking about after September. Brought in a substitute teacher to rehearse my daughter into saying I got mad and beat her. And the worker says my daughter couldn't even form the word. If you meet my daughter, she's biracial. She's my heart. If you hit her, she wouldn't even know you did her wrong. And I won't tolerate anybody hurting my baby.
Was there a prosecutor involved, and how long did they stay involved, and how did you beat the rap, so to speak?
Well, what happened is I'm a time fanatic, and I'm too legit to quit. So what I did is when the injury happened in 1984, when we still lived in Detroit, like I said, we was investigators, procedure of Children's Hospital to investigate the injuries and the allegations. I was cleared immediately by Protective Services then. And at the time, I had my 2 older children sign affidavits, which were notarized. I did it then, just out of habit, just procedure for me. And so when this incident happened and they went to school to do that, I came, showed them documentation. My daughter's she had went to Duffield Elementary School when she was in Detroit mainstream. She was part of Shriners Hospital, so they knew of the injury. She was also a member of DIC, Detroit Institute for Crippled Children. But guess what? Guess who her pediatrician is, or was? Dr. Herman Gray, who's over the whole Children's Hospital today.
And he's got
documentation from when the injury first happened, from her birth. But they didn't want to have the truth. They just wanted to frame me, and the documentation that I'll provide you will show you the procedure that they go through to frame families, take their children, and that way they can justify stealing the monies for themselves.
So how did you just provided them with the truth?
And Ann Diggs Taylor threw it out because she knew I had every right to sue them for damages. I also went before the mediation board. When I got in the room to do the deposition and to go through the mediation downtown, the 3 attorneys there told me they didn't want to hear anything I had to say and didn't let me talk and wouldn't, because I was going against Grosse Pointe, because the police department there, as well as the probate court, had violated our civil and constitutional rights. And then even after that, X number of years passed, Grosse Pointe Farms police, as I told you, pulled up with 3 cars, 2 officers to each car, 1 lady officer, and I don't believe she was part of the Grosse Pointe Farms Police Department, pulled up with the guns drawn. I wasn't planning to go somewhere. Someone was building a home in Detroit. Said, Lynnette, how you doing? It was Father's Day. I wasn't planning to go anywhere. I gave my dad card and a couple of brothers, but I called a few gentlemen I knew who were fathers, say Happy Father's Day. One gentleman, Willie, said, Lynnette, I'd like you to come and see my house, the progress I made, and I'm going to Home Depot. I'll be back. So I go out the house, down the walk, not in a rush because I wasn't in a hurry. And my Alani's having fun going down the walk. And before I can even put the key in the door, car door even get to the car, the police pulled up, guns drawn on me, said I went to Jacobson and stole a white lady purse. I had a charge, didn't even have a limit. Okay? When Nolan Miller came in town, I had a table just for my guests. And then I asked the officers, I say, look, touch the car. It was summer. It was hot that year. I say, touch the hood. It's not even warm. Then they claimed that the Volvo that I was driving, they didn't describe the color right. They said that the car didn't have a license plate. When do you know any person of color going through Grosse Pointe without a license plate and nobody stops them? I've been stopped in my own driveway over 8 times when the memo wasn't passed yet that a person of color moved on Rose Terrace.
Did you spend time in jail?
No, it never gets that far. And who heard that case when I put that case in the court was Warfield Moore. He's corrupt too. This is what happened. I went to Grosse Pointe Farms Police and asked them to give me a police report, which you pay $3 at the time to get. They refused to say the lady will be in the next day. So that was a Sunday. So that Monday I came back. I asked for the police report. They said no, that I had to put in a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act letter. I said, okay, fine. I purposely waited, but I contacted Grosse Pointe City, where Jacobson was located, and I asked them for the police report pertaining to that run. They said it was a retail theft. It was not a purse snatching, and it was 2 black men, and it was supposed to be for a bomber shirt. What happened during the court proceedings, Grosse Pointe attorney said, and I told the judge that it was no man lives in my house, so they had nobody that's even at my house. And he said, quote, Your Honor, protect us, Your Honor, protect us. And Warfield Moore says, I'm dismissing your case, Ms. Williams, with prejudice to cover up again for Grosse Pointe Farms. And I then went to a city-county meeting in Grosse Pointe Farms, and I told them, the taxpayers there, that When you pay your taxes, you'll be paying it to me because they won't leave me alone.
If you wouldn't mind kind of showing us that there's a pattern that exists. This isn't an isolated case.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we call it racketeering and
Yes.
why we call it corruption.
Right.
Please.
Okay, we're calling it racketeering for the simple reason that these individuals make a pattern, a day-to-day whole state activity of stealing individuals' monies, settlements, property alike. I and my daughter, Millionaire Williams, was like a granddaughter to Mrs. Rosa Parks. We helped take care of Mrs. Parks, assisted Miss Elaine Steele and Anita Peaks when we could. We are part of the organization, the Institute. We're members, lifelong members. And Miss Parks adored Millionaire, my daughter. Prior to Miss Parks' death, over 5 years ago now, I asked Miss Elaine, I tried to inform her about the corruption of probate court because what I and my daughter had been going through. She informed me at the time, Lynnette, I know a lot of judges and attorneys of prominence in the state that would assist her if she needed anything, that her will was indeed written, and Miss Parks indeed left monies for her nieces and nephews for the futures, for their college education. When Miss Parks died, Freddie Burton was on the case. Freddie Burton harassed, threatened Mrs. Elaine's and the Institute's attorney, made them get off the cases. They had my attorneys. It's a common pattern of the probate court judges. They threaten your attorney. I'll make sure you don't practice in the state. They put a gag on their citizens. So if Elaine Peaks or Miss Elaine Steele or Miss Peaks would speak to the media prior to fairly recently, that they would be incarcerated. And he indeed sent Wayne County sheriffs to their home to arrest them, knowing they were on their way down to court to intimidate them. This is a common practice. Mrs. Parks' apartment at the riverfront, as well as it was in Miss Parks' name, as well as Elaine Steele. The Freddie Burton wouldn't let Elaine Steele keep the apartment. He stole all the furniture out of it, tried to sell it all. There had been no accounting for the whole 5 years that Miss Parks died. They just recently, this month, supposedly came up with the accounting, but they took everything out, the Institute of the homes on Wildermere, as well as the home on the riverfront, and kept it for themselves. And we know in some individuals who have been given property that was not supposed to be given out or sold to individuals. And I would not surprise me if Judge Burton Mack have kept some items, I'm talking about awards, whatever, of Miss Parks and things that I and others have given her. And their individual, another friend, Mrs. Michelle Mayberry, who once lived in Grosse Pointe Farm, had 2 homes. They took her mother's home, they took her home. They're now torn down after Walter Sikowski alleged had to have sent someone there to kick in the walls. I have tapes on those. And tore her mother's home up, made it unlivable, broke in the safe, urinated all over the place, everything. Mrs. Mayberry has not now seen her mother for about 5 years, but prior to that, when she wouldn't give her mother up, they incarcerated this mother of 5 children, put her literally, physically in jail in Tennessee. Wayne County Court sent sheriffs or had the sheriffs in Tennessee go to the farms and property that Mrs. Mayberry and her family owned with guns drawn to harass them, intimidate them, threw them in jail, wanted to beat them up, everything. This is, people need to know. Our legislatures are not doing anything. I spoke before the Michigan House of Representatives, and they tried to say that I threatened Milton Maximum life the next week. I'm a citizen. If I'd have did that, and I'm speaking before the judges of the House of Representatives, if I would have threatened anyone's life, would I have made it back home? There is nothing that I will ever do to keep me from coming home to my daughter, who I love and adore. I need her, and she needs me. And we love each other. And the way the probate court tells it, you think they conceived her, carried her for 9 months, gave birth to her, and raised her. They did not. They are crooked as they come. Milton Mack and Burton, Judge George, Kirkendall, all of them are no more than common thieves. And I have more, did you hear me? I say I have more respect for the common thief that holds you up in the alley with a gun and knife. You know why? Because I can avoid that alley. It seems to me now there's no way the citizens of this state and many other states can avoid the corruption of the probate court. If they want what you have or your loved ones have worked hard and saved, they take it. And all the avenues or the protections that we as citizens are supposed to have are in their pocket, especially the Court of Appeals.
You been to the Court of Appeals?
Yes, they threw my documents out, claimed I didn't have enough copies. I had 8, I counted on the desk in front of the clerk. Not until months later, after I paid $400, which I had to borrow, which I was supposed to file, I did file at first, an indigent to fee waiver. Milton Mack and all of them tell them not to take it from me, not to let me file under indigency and waive the court fees. I borrowed the $400. They still didn't send it back, although they wouldn't let me proceed. And the statute, the time had ran out before I could even bring in another copy.
I've been to the Court of Appeals, and it's called color of law, like you said. Mm-hmm. They use rules, procedures, and fraud mm-hmm. in various combinations to prevent you from going where you need to go. Mm-hmm. Now, you've got a paper in your hand, and mm-hmm. I don't want to rustle it too much because
okay.
it'd be a pickup on the sound.
Okay.
But you had mentioned Walter.
Walter Sikowski of Livonia. Yeah. He's a corrupt attorney. The judges down at Wayne County Probate Court and other courts, they put him on what's called difficult cases, meaning individuals who just don't roll over and give the probate court your monies, your children to take.
Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with this person?
Walter Sikowski is the scum of the earth. He's a liar and he's a thief. They don't deny what I'm saying. They just don't like the fact that I'm saying it. Like I said earlier, Milton Mack told George Cushenberry, who was state rep, that he would make a deal with me if I didn't talk to the press, and I told him the truth was not for sale. It's never for sale, and I will never, ever stop telling the truth.
Are you getting the press to even hear you?
Ashenfelter said to me, quote, Milton Mack is my friend, and I'm not going to tell anything that you do. When I did have some of the press that did interview me, some of them told twisted version that I'm ripping off my child. It clearly states in Michigan court rule that when you settle a lawsuit on behalf of a minor, accounting is required. If required, then you have to file accounts. But I was not required. I have documentation showed Milton Max the transcripts of my settlement as well as my structure of my lawsuit. When I ordered my transcripts in 1995, 94, they perjure the transcripts by adding supposedly that they think I'm supposed to file accounts. They asked me to leave the courtroom at the time of my medical malpractice hearing. Yes, I will be going after a Pacific hospital again because they had indeed breached my settlement. They illegally removed me as guardian of my daughter. When an individual who's incapacitated becomes 18 prior to the 18th birthday, you're supposed to file a petition to court for guardianship. I did so. They closed my case out. Well, not closed it out, but they gagged it so I couldn't get my guardian papers, nothing. I didn't get supposedly guardian papers until 2005, and those are bogus. Walter Sikowski was indeed the guardian of my daughter illegally on the part of the probate court so they could ask MedLife to send them the money. I sent MedLife a letter saying that I did not want them to have it. It did not belong to them as they stated in their legal department, but they have aided and abetted the probate court in ripping us off. So indeed, I ask each and every one of you, anything associated with MedLife of New York, do not purchase, do not have your annuities, your bonds, nothing go through it, because if the judges who are corrupt like Milton Mack, Freddie Burton, Judge George of Macomb County, who comes to Wayne County to hear my case, they will steal it for their own use. These are individuals who never get enough money. The probate court has become a cesspool of corruption and wealth for the judges and attorneys of this state and many other states, I've come to learn.
Some of the allegations that you're making, is there the smoking guns that you might be able to produce?
Yes. His accounting is not proper. This is a man that's been in law practice, I presume, over 20 years. He's been harassing me since 2000. So he's refused to sign his 12th annual account. I contact Judge George's office, wanted to fax a copy to let them see what I'm seeing, but again, they're in with it, in on what's going on. They've been doing all kind of shenanigans. For instance, each year, I, as a guardian, birth mother, must file a guardian report, which comes from the Wayne County Probate Court. Like clockwork. Last year, it didn't come to me. They didn't send it out. And they purposely did that so that I would believe that because the Wayne County Probate Court didn't send me the document, that I didn't have to sign it. But I don't read a newspaper anymore. I try to read a law book. If I didn't send it in, and when we went to court for the 11th annual count last year, they could have taken my daughter. Judge George asked Walter Sikowski, did she send in her guardian report? Yeah, that's what he said. And I laughed within myself. Did they think I was going to fall for that? And this is just some of the things they do.
So it might be not just what you see, but what you don't see.
Yes.
You have to be watching out for, because they're setting you up with what you don't see that is supposed to be part of the rules. And if you don't know the rules and you haven't read your law books, then even the attorneys are part of this whole corruption plan, which makes it incumbent upon us as Americans that if we want to stand up for our rights, we have to be doing it ourselves.
Oh, yes. And not to mention only that, when it first began, I asked Milton Mack, I said, Mr. Judge Mack, there was no accounting to be filed. He said, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So what's their excuse? And if not, when the citizens settle a medical malpractice suit, and if it's permanent for me, why isn't it permanent for the courts? Another court. And that's another thing. When you settle a lawsuit on behalf of a minor, especially a medical malpractice where injuries are involved, you cannot approve that settlement in circuit court until it goes through probate court for its approval. I have documentation with the numbers on it by the probate court showing that they indeed received my settlement agreement as it stands. There's no separation in the monies between my daughter and myself, before we settled in circuit court. And then Judge Tyrannus was a judge in circuit court who's a blind judge who had, along with Milton Mack, had ex parte proceedings in 1997 and illegally asked them to send my money to them, had ex parte proceedings, which I had no knowledge of, and have been taking the monies ever since. July 1st, 1995. I settled my suit in 1986.
Now, what would you like to see done by Bill Windsor in Lawless America, the movie, and what kind of solutions do you, Gil Engel thinks that the solution is to put these people behind bars. What do you think is the solution that we can do both with video and legal?
Number one, I'm speaking to your organization today to ask people, please get knowledge, protect what you and your loved ones have worked hard for all your lives, the things that you have saved. Protect especially all the handicapped children, the people who can't work anymore like myself, who would like to, and to make sure the judges and attorneys are held accountable, put in jail, take their license, take their pensions, as they made up a law to take Kilpatrick's pension. I'm not saying he's a good person, that he did right things. But if they made up a law that he can't run for office in 20 years, why should they? Why is it that Milton Mack and Freddie Burton have been in the Wayne County Probate Court taking turns for over 18 years and ripping off the citizens of this state? That's why even in Macomb County, I know other cases where Macomb County judges have ripped off families, gone to Wayne County, Milton Mack, to have him decide whether they committed a wrong against a family. Another rat ain't gonna squeal on another rat. And that's just like watching the foxes watch the chickens in the chicken coop. If we part of the corruption, the system, just like in this state, United States, people hound about people who don't have medical insurance. What have the Republicans brought forth? Why, if we don't have it and you work for the citizens, if the citizens don't have health care, I don't care what your color, then they shouldn't have it. And then when you put them in the same position that you are in, where they don't have they working hard, 60 hours a week, 40, whatever, and you working hard and you come home and you don't have medical coverage for you and your family, then they shouldn't be in office for 4 years and have it for the rest of their lives. And I thank you.